So let's walk through a couple of frameworks and let's go into the meat and potatoes of what that could look like.
Yeah.
So what are some good questions that you use to create or find problems?
Well, one thing that you need to learn. So what the methodology that I started developing, even on the doors, that later developed into what is now called, in behavioral science, neuro-emotional persuasion questioning. So it stands for NEPQ, neuro-emotional persuasion questioning. My background, actually, I'm not that smart, but my background in college was behavioral science and human psychology. So when I got into door-to-door sales, the company gave us a script and they said, hey, here's some books, from these gurus that sold back in the 70s. I hope it works out for you, and we go out there in the door and they're like, hey man, you just got to be really, I remember my sales manager's like, hey, you just got to be really excited on the doors. Like when they open, have a big smile on your face, like get pumped up, and just be like, hey, how's it going? Now I realized very quickly after the first day that the more excited I was when people came to the door, the more objections they gave me and the more doors got slammed in my face. So I realized very quickly that being really excited when somebody came to the door did not work. Even though the sales gurus that I was reading said, always got to be enthusiastic, always, hey, the always be closing, I get it, but you have to do it in a way where people don't feel like you're closing them. Because if they feel like you're closing them and pressuring them, they just put up resistance, right? So instead of the ABCs of closing, I'd rather follow the ABDs of selling, always be disarming. So when I got on the door, my main goal was how do I disarm this person opening the door, the prospect, to get them to pull me in and want to engage and want to open up to me. So instead of like knocking on the door, like, hey, how's it going? I remember, and we'll go through some different questions if you want to, but I remember like, I'd be there and I'd have like this, it was almost like I was a meter reader, if that makes sense. Like I'd have this big clipboard, like this metal clipboard. I wore a construction vest, like one of the orange ones or the lime green ones. I had like a tape measure here. I wore these like boring khaki shorts, old man New Balance, like white shoes. Like I wanted to look like plain freaking Jane, like reduce the resistance as much. I remember my watch was like a $10 Walmart watch. I literally did it on purpose. Okay. And so when I knocked on the door, I said like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Like every salesperson would. I'm like looking around, like I'm almost doing a survey. I'm like kind of looking at their trees and they come to the door. I'm like, they're like, hey, yeah, how can I help you? I'm like, yeah, are you guys the homeowners here? Like I was confused and people were like, yeah, what's going on? So instantly, that was just the very first thing I would do. It would cause the prospect to a little bit lower their guard and become a little bit more open. Okay, so that's just one little thing. Now, how do you help them find their problem? So one thing you have to do, like if you want to build urgency in the sale for them to buy now and not later, there's a process you have to take them through, okay? So you have to learn what are called connecting questions that take the focus off you, put it on them. If you knock on the door and be like, hi, how are you doing today? And that's not a connecting question. Everybody knows you're not genuinely interested in how their day is going, right? Like if you ever got a cold call and be like, hi, Sam, how are you doing today? I'm with XYZ company. And the reason why I called you was, you're instantly like, oh yeah.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. You go into fight or flight mode, okay? So you have to learn how to ask connecting questions. You have to learn then how to ask what are called situation questions to help the prospect and you find out what their current situation really is. It's not just for you, it's for them too, because most people don't know what their situation is. You then have to ask what are called problem awareness questions that help the prospect find out what their real problems are, and not just what their real problems are, because most salespeople can find out a problem. Like you don't have to be great at sales to find out a problem from a prospect, but greater salespeople are able to help the prospect find out the root cause of the problem. And the very greatest of all salespeople that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not millions a year in commissions in any industry, are able to help them see what the problem is actually doing to them or how it's affecting them. Now, one thing that you want to learn are what are called consequence questions. Okay, consequence questions allow the prospect to see the consequences and the ramifications of what will happen if they don't do anything about solving the problem, okay? So like a generic example, so let's say if I'm selling I'll give you an example. Let's say, and this is kind of outside of your space, and we'll see if we can come up with what something that you guys sell. So let's say if I'm selling to a company, and let's say that I'm selling lead generation, right? So we train a lot of companies that sell leads to like Fortune 1000 companies and SMB. Okay, so I might say their biggest concern is the lower quality leads are affecting their sales. Their sales are becoming stagnant. Blah 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 blah. So I might say, okay, but help me understand, Jim. Like, what are the ramifications if your company doesn't do anything about this, though? Now, I can't ask that question in the first 10 seconds because there's no trust. That's more like 3/4 of the way through, like maybe the first call discovery call, or maybe the second call demo, okay? Or I might say, okay, but what if you guys don't do anything about this and you keep getting these lower quality leads to your sales team and your sales keep stagnating the next 3, 6, even 12 months from now? Like, what happens to you guys then? See, it allows them to think like, oh my gosh, they think about the consequences if the problem doesn't get solved. So here you are, you have to help them see what their current situation is. We call that their current state. Here's where they want to be. We call that their objective state. Now, what's the gap in between? Those are the problems that your questioning skills are able to help them see they have that they didn't realize they had when you first started talking to them. Are you with me?
Yeah. So it's like walking them through the future state of doing the same thing or continuing with the bad scenario that they may not realize is bad, and helping them kind of augment that new reality of pain and pleasure in the future, either way, good or bad, right? Yeah.
So like connecting questions, situation helps them find out their situation. Problem awareness helps them find out what their real problems are, how they're affecting them. Solution awareness questions help them see what their future is going to look like once all these problems are solved that they didn't know they had 20 minutes before you showed up. And then consequence questions rip that future state, like you said, away, where they have to defend themselves on why they need to change now. That builds massive urgency in the sale. We've taken, I know this is outside of what you guys do to door, but we've taken like medical device sales companies that had 9-month sales cycles, a year sales cycles to get into a hospital and doctor, and reduce that down to 2 months. 2 months from 9 months. Imagine what that does to your commission checks and your revenue. It's insane. So it's helping build urgency in the sale where they want to do something about it now, not stay in status quo and push it down the road.
Yeah, that makes sense.